Hello and welcome to a new episode of Shaken Not Burned. I'm your co-host, Giulia Bottaro. Fashion is known to be one of the most polluting industries worldwide. The sheer amount of garments produced and wasted every day has far-reaching consequences on communities and ecosystems. This $2.4 trillion industry employs 300 million people across the value chain, many of whom are women located in the global south and working in dangerous conditions for little pay. We have covered extensively the social issues in our previous episode with Onya Clark at the Business and Human Rights Center. Talking about the environmental impacts, citing a few statistics from the UN, fashion is estimated to generate up to 8% of global annual carbon emissions and consumes 15 trillion liters of water annually. It is the third largest contributor of plastic waste, with an 11% share. I could go on. So how do we sort this mess? One solution is circularity. Reduce, reuse, recycle our resources to avoid as much waste as possible. Today's episode is the third one in our fashion arc and is a little different than usual. We have collated 2 interviews to cover the topic from different perspectives. Firstly, we spoke to Niccolò Cipriani, CEO of Rifò, a circular fashion brand based in Italy, about what it means to set up a sustainable fashion company and how to spot low-impact materials. We then sat down with Kenchen Arjandas Barwani, fashion consultant at Empire Apparel, who walked us through the ins and outs of the fashion supply chain, including how perfectly good garments are discarded for very small details, and how the off-price sector addresses this problem by buying dead stock and placing it in stores at lower prices. So here they are. Hello, Niccolò. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, Julia. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Why don't you tell me a bit about your experience and how Rifò came to be?
Rifò was born actually 8 years ago with a crowdfunding campaign. Before doing Rifò, actually, I was working in a development cooperation program in Vietnam, where I've lived 2 years, where I've also seen problem of overproduction because there was a lot of waste coming from mainly fast fashion production in those areas like Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar and Laos. And so I thought, like, how is it possible we produce so much waste and still we don't talk a lot about recycling? It was 2017, so it seems close by, but it was a long time ago actually, because then the industry has developed a bit, let's say. And so started thinking about solutions, but what was funny, and still it's funny, is that I come from Prato, that is one of the main actually textile cluster in the world. And actually in Prato they have been recycling textile fibers for more than 100 years, but they weren't communicating that. So what I did is, okay, I come back home, research, I try to understand how it works, and I want to develop a collection made with recycled materials, natural materials like wool, cashmere, and cotton, and made it locally.
Okay. So why were they not communicating the fact that there was already a thriving recycling ecosystem in Prato?
Because there was a different perception of recycled fibers from the market, because at that time, virgin fibers were the best fiber in the market. Today, people are looking for recycled fibers. At that time, there wasn't value added on that material. So when we started still, there were people like a bit, let's say, uncertain about our approach because it was innovative. But then now today it's quite the norm to see sustainable, organic, recycle in all the products we buy and we use every day, even on plastic bottle.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into the more in depth about these issues, I would like to go a bit macro and talk about the problem. What's this problem about overproduction? I mentioned some statistics there, but what are the dynamics behind all of this?
Well, I think the main problem is that it's a market based on quantity instead of quality. It's a market based on production and consumption. It's a market based on a high repurchase rate, but not because I like what I wear, but because what I wear doesn't last. So the main problem is that we are using natural resources like they're infinitive, like water, energy, CO2, but they aren't. And we are using them for something that at the end we don't wear because we buy it, maybe we use it two, three times, and then we throw it away. So um, we are really like stressing the planet for something that we don't need.
I'm thinking about some of the mechanisms that, there is overproduction on one side, but then there is overconsumption. As you said, we buy something, we wear it two or three times, and then it lies forgotten into the wardrobe or it just goes straight to the bin. So I'm thinking, like, how did we get to this point? Is it marketing? Is it because the clothes themselves are low quality, so we're not pushed to actually care for them?
It's both marketing and quality, I will say. Marketing, surely today we have impulses every moment with the social media. At the same time, we focus a lot on either on the price or either on the brand, but we don't really look at the quality. We are not used to like check composition label. We buy many things that we think they are cool or they are like taken at a good price, but then we don't look at the hidden cost of what they buy.
I think it's the responsibility lies both for the customer, but also the producer who, how many companies have tens of new collections every day. So there is this constant churn of products available on the market.
Yeah, there is like this constant availability of products of collections. Before there were only two collections. Fast fashion do maybe more than 20, 30 collections per year. I think at the end we are quite manipulated by the market to buy more and more. And sometimes we should ask ourselves, like, do I really need it? Is it something that is really useful, or I don't have room
Mhm.
anymore on my wardrobe, you know?
Yeah. It also feels like with TikTok and all the video content that we consume, that some of the trends on the internet can be quite short lived. I am not up to date with these at all, but I can think of like cottagecore was a thing maybe 2 years ago, but now people have moved on. And maybe there is a new TV series, maybe a period drama, and people start to dress like that period drama, but then it ends, and then all those corsets are again out of fashion. So it feels like there are these other trends that are pushing for
I think
constant change.
that's a problem, but that's a light one because it's still
Hmm.
fashion. So it's
Okay.
normal that there is something that this year go well and next year not as the previous year. So I think that's not the main problem, unless like one collection is made only of trends. Um, I think the main problem is that we are pushed to buy everything like it's new, but actually we already have it.
Yeah, so if I have a t-shirt, why should I buy a new one kind of thing?
Yeah. Only if like what I have is not good anymore.
You also mentioned material composition. Do you think that people are actually aware of the materials that they buy? And do you have any tips for how somebody could go about learning about that?
The first thing you have to assess when you buy a garment is the composition label because you have the two information. One about the fiber that is used and the other one is where it's produced. So you understand if what you are paying is fair or not. Um, most of people they don't do that. Um, they just buy the product because of the price or of the brand. Well, they should do that because maybe start realizing that sometimes they pay too much for what they are getting. And for instance, a good composition label should have at least 95% of raw material inside it. And this material should be natural and not synthetic. Origin, of course, like if it comes from Far East or like from North Africa, of course, like the labor that is paid was really cheap. So it's better like in European origin. I mean, sometimes you think like you get something like it is for free, but never is for free in the market.
It also feels that there is so much opacity in the fashion world and the supply chains that sometimes you're paying quite a lot for something maybe because there is a brand attached to it, as you mentioned, but the quality doesn't correspond to the price. So maybe there is a piece of clothing that it's really expensive, like hundreds of euros, and then it's all made of polyester.
It happens quite often, actually. I mean, if we start checking the label, I think we wouldn't buy at least 50% of what we generally buy because of the brand.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's that simple, I suppose. Just check the label, and that tells you quite a lot on.
Yeah, now probably you will have also digital product passport that can give you much more information about what you are buying. But I think that the composition label is still like a good way to start.
Mm-hmm. Is this digital product passport something mandated by legislation, or is it something that companies that choose to do?
It will be mandatory. Yes, it's not mandatory at the moment. There are companies that are already using it, but it will be mandatory soon
Okay.
in the EU.
In the EU, okay. So companies will really have to review their entire supply chains then to ensure this transparency.
And its impact, yes,
So how can fashion reduce the impact across the supply chain?
with um, producing less, consuming less, the fashion market has become too big. We don't need that. So just to find a new balance, a new, let's say, like equilibrium point. And also I think it's important that we start consuming less and using more what we already have in the wardrobe.
I'm thinking, would make the supply chains a bit shorter help?
Sure, because like if you make the supply chain shorter, it implies that you can also produce less. Because if I produce like far away, I need a lot of quantity to absorb also the shipping cost.
And I suppose it would also be about the materials, right? Use as much natural material as
Yes.
possible. Yeah.
Well, natural materials, because like circular economy is not infinitive, like the artificial one, but the natural one it is. So you need to buy a biodegradable product because at the end you can recycle a wool sweater like 3, 5 times, but then it has to go back to nature.
So there is a limit to how much you can recycle these materials.
Yeah, because it's a mechanical recycling and it depends on the length of the fiber.
Hmm. Okay, so maybe we can talk about Rifò then. So since you are the expert in recycling materials, can you tell me about how do you go about making your brand as sustainable as possible?
Well, when we started, we thought it was the only way because the market is saturated. There wasn't an alternative. We have always thought in a radical way to offer something that you cannot find today in the market, something that can substitute what we are currently buying, but can also look at the long-term impact and not only at the short-term revenue.
So in practice, how does it look like?
Well, we collect all clothes and textile waste directly and indirectly. They are then transformed into a fiber again and then into a yarn. We buy the yarn, we produce knitwear, accessories, t-shirts, and so on. We use 5 material mainly that are wool, cashmere, cotton, linen, and silk. And we do it locally here in Prato. So we try to reduce also our cost transportation emissions as much as possible.
And like how often do you release a design? How
Well,
does
we
that work?
have two catalogs, one in the summer and one in the winter. We release products weekly that are part of the catalog, but because we do pre-sale, so when we launch a product, we collect the orders and then we launch the production. In exchange, we give a 30% discount code for the waiting period. Once we have received orders, like normally in 3 weeks, then we start the production, and in 5 weeks we deliver the product.
So do you have many leftover garments from each collection?
No, at the end of the year, we have normally a sellout higher than 95%, so not many. And we try also to have carryover at the end of the season so we can sell them also next year easily. But for the moment, our stock is really, really low.
I also get the impression from looking at the website that the design, like the garments themselves, are quite timeless in the way that the shapes of the garment, they're not meant to follow the fashion now. They feel like they are fairly basic items that can last a long time.
Yeah, because like we think that you need to produce a garment that can last also as a design as a concept. When you do sustainable fashion, you do sustainability, that is a long-term concept, while you do fashion, that is a short-term concept. So you need to find the balance between the two.
When you started the company, as you said, all these characteristics that you talk about feel quite radical for fashion, and obviously the price point isn't cheap. So how did you go about creating the company? How did you find investors and customers, and how did you convince the producers in Prato to join you on this mission?
At the beginning, we prepared a crowdfunding campaign. So we started preparing like a collection of hats, gloves, and scarves. We found suppliers here that were producing for other brands, and they liked the idea. I made like a PowerPoint presentation, and I introduced the concept to them, and they supported it at the beginning. And then we launched this communication campaign. It was quite new at the beginning. Rifò was appreciated because it was innovative. It's something completely new. We attracted customers also outside Italy, and we started with 290 pre-orders and around like 12,000 euro. And then we entered into an acceleration program in Florence named Apple program. We found investors in 2020, and then we did another round in 2022. And since then, we haven't done other fundraising rounds. So we started like step by step, slowly with like few accessories, and nowadays we have total look collection.
Is your customer base growing, and what is attracting customers to the brand?
I think customers are more and more interested in what we are doing. I think they appreciate our vision and our values. And the problem sometimes can be price, but in general, we see that our niche composed like that people with cultural availability and sometimes also economic availability are more eager to spend on a product that is meant to last, and it's also made with recycled fibers.
Do you think that the fashion industry can one day be sustainable?
In absolute values, no, because fashion, as I said, is a short-term word. You need to change to buy clothes every year, but it can be more sustainable than it is,
Mhm.
for sure.
Do you see the future of fashion made of maybe smaller brands like yours, or can big companies really get to the point where they are sustainable?
I think it depends on the customers, it depends on us, but I think I hope actually that it would be a reverse trend, like small is beautiful.
Do you know of any other brands that are doing something similar to Rifò?
Well, in Italy, well, not with recycled fibers, but as a concept, there is Progetto Qui, and there are also other brands, European brands that do something similar, but maybe with organic fibers. We recycle ones, but with polyester and nylon. There is EcoAlf in Spain.
We are a B2B podcast, so we talk to professionals. So, how can professionals and businesses out there support the transition of the fashion sector?
Even like B2B and companies, they can have an impact in their merchandising or in their like buying solutions. So I think what they should have is like a guideline for like a respectful and sustainable buying practices.
How do you find being a small brand in an industry with such big brands that, are quite powerful?
Well, we do our own way. I mean, we cultivate our niche and our garden, so we're happy like that. We're happy with the customers we have. We are happy if we can get new customers. I don't think we will ever become mass market, but we like to cultivate our niche.
Do you have anything else that we should have covered that we didn't talk about?
Maybe about social impact, because we also do social impact projects inside our territory. 1% of our revenues go to this project. We are currently working on Nenostipani, that is a vocational training project for vulnerable migrants. There are many migrants coming here in Prato. We train them for jobs that are slowly fading away, like the one of rugmen, spinning operators, and so on. So it's important that we use our revenues also to develop projects for the community and for the territory that can look at the long term.
Are there any concerns about displacing jobs in the global south by bringing the supply chain to Europe?
Not really, because I think that it's relocation. I mean, there are competencies that we lost in the last 20 years. At the same time, we can rebuild them. But still, I think there is breadth for both.
I suppose there are not very good jobs as well in certain factories, so the hope is that there will be a different type of job creation in alongside the supply chain in Asia.
I think, I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
I'm here with Kanchan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, happy to be here.
Can you tell me about your job?
Okay, so I'm a fashion consultant in the off-price fashion industry. Now, a lot of people are not very familiar with what is off-price fashion, but
I'm one of them, yes.
yeah, it's basically the world of excess inventory, canceled orders, overproduction, and leftovers. So, to explain it simply, when brand places orders of garments, they are very well connected with manufacturers all over the world, right? So when they place orders to them, sometimes the manufacturers are not able to honor the delivery time that they committed. Like for instance, say a big brand wants to place an order and say that, hey, I want to order these coats, okay, and I want it to be in my stores in September, which means it has to be in my warehouse in August, for example. And the factory says, yeah, sure, they are able to do that. And then they don't honor it because of some condition or another doesn't allow them to ship on time. So the brand cancels on the factory and said, you know what, now I can't take in the goods because I have to wait for another year. I miss a whole period of selling season, whatever, and they cancel. That's one of the reasons that goods get canceled. So they're good condition goods, okay? They're pristine condition. And on another note, also sometimes situations where the brands are very particular about what they want, right? So if they say you did not place the hang tag is supposed to be attached under this arm, but you placed it under this arm, cancel.
Wow.
And then
Okay, so even what could be seen as a small detail
yes,
can
small detail.
actually
Even
cancel
like
entire orders.
something like, for example, the Pantone color black should be Pantone number 123, for example, and then they used 456. They would cancel it. Like
Gone.
there's a difference
Okay.
in the Pantone, maybe due to the production, the dyeing process. There's a lot of nuance in these things, right? So due to that, it gets cancelled as well. They're very beautiful goods. It's just they get cancelled because of these things. And there are instances where factories do overproduce as well because they have to keep a buffer in case of damages during production. Maybe this gets dirty, stained, not cut properly. If it's not damaged, you're doing a good job. That just sits there. There's a lot of nuance to this, but that's the world that I am from. So basically what we do is we deal with this manufacturers, like they come to us when they have canceled goods or leftovers and they ask us like, we need quick cash. What can you do to help us? Because this is dead inventory essentially. If we don't do anything with it or they don't find a client for it like us, it goes to the landfill, which obviously we don't want, right? So there's already enough problems in the world for that. So what we do is we take on those merchandise as long as they're good condition, of course. They're A grade wearable. So as long as that can work, we take that on, we bring it into the United States, and we redistribute it to off-price retailers. Like you have TJ Maxx, you have Burlington, you have Ross stores. Those are big off-price stores. And some people don't understand the workings behind it. Like how could you get nice brands for such cheap price? But this is the reason. It's because they're
Right.
canceled goods, but there's nothing wrong with them. It's
Mhm.
little things that consumers don't really care about. They just care that we get nice goods, nice brands at affordable prices.
It sounds like a huge market.
Yes. In America, really big market. Yes.
I imagine it's also the same in other countries as well.
I believe other countries have their own concept of outlets. Some of these stores are also known as factory outlets where you will go in and you say that, oh my God, I got this brand for such a good price, because then you'll know that that is actually off price. It's something that's either canceled or leftovers, but somebody has redistributed to that store, which is good. Like, like why throw it, right? Because it's good.
So, how does this all fit into the concept of having a circular economy in fashion?
Circular economy in our world, we believe that it is the idea of keeping products and materials in use for as long as possible, in case instead of like a take, make, dispose model, because that's what fast fashion is essentially. Like they produce I mean, even their turnover and their change in trends are so fast that brands who are doing fast fashion, their clothing don't really last a long time. It's a couple of washes and you're done, couple of washes. But that's kind of how the brands position themselves too. That's why the trends are always so fast with them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in our case, we don't do fast fashion. We really work with the brands and the manufacturers of the brands who we know are good quality goods that they really intend. I mean, they're brands who are known for the longevity of their goods, of their clothing, basically. But it's just due to situational, they get canceled. Okay.
Okay.
So, and for us, like redistribution, like redistributing to these stores, is a very big part of circularity in our world. For example, a major retailer who cancels an order of, say, for example, 100,000 units because it arrives late, it's going to arrive late, or because demand has shifted, or as of late, because of tariffs, they start abandoning their shipments at the port. Where I come in the picture is I help to redirect this into another channel where it still has value. So that cycle is circularity in practice for us. That's where
Okay.
circular fashion is like for us in off price, like that.
Okay. Interesting. What would you say are the mechanisms behind overconsumption?
I feel that marketing plays a massive role over here because fashion has become less about need and more about, say, urgency, especially with the whole trend cycle, social media, the whole limited drop, limited capsule collection, and then with the whole, like you have a sale for a certain period, like a countdown timer. Everything creates a feeling of you buy now or you're going to miss out. And then there's also brands like what I mentioned earlier that they intentionally create trend driven pieces. And certain trends, they don't last. They're good for now, but they feel outdated quickly. There are brands that specifically create these like trend driven pieces that will get outdated quickly. So the challenge is a lot of consumers are now doing a lot of emotional buying, of course, and it often leads in long-term waste. I could say the same for crop tops. Crop tops has its moments, yes, but even for us, when we get offered crop tops, it's not the biggest interest for us because we care for the mass market and what can people of all body shapes and sizes would prefer. A nice top, maybe a long sleeve top. It's more universal. That's kind of what we go after, as opposed to trend driven pieces, because we understand as well that for the stores, even if they want it, they probably won't sell out of it because it's not for everyone. The sell throughs are very slow for them.
Yeah. So you try to stick to more like evergreen, kind of
Yes,
something that
yes,
can be
evergreen.
worn for a lifetime. But
Yes,
then
yes.
what happens to those crop tops then, to the producers of the crop tops or whatever is trendy now and will stop trendy later?
A lot of people like us, even we don't want to touch it
Okay.
because we are very mindful about the quantities we buy, because the stores over here, they listen to what the consumers buy, right? They have reports. They see in their system what's selling and what's not selling. And for us, when we are going to purchase and bring say clothing into the United States, whether it is regular clothing or pajamas, sleepwear, activewear, those are hot sellers that's always going to sell. So we
Mm-hmm.
also get feedback from them that, hey, you know what, this doesn't sell, that doesn't sell. So we keep in mind, right, that if, for example, there's a factory that gets cancelled on by a retailer that it's all white color pants, we're never going to touch that, because how am I going to bring 3 containers of white pants, 100,000 units? Where are we going to sell it to? Even for the stores, they want variety. No matter if
Yeah.
they have 1,000 stores or 2,000 stores, everybody wants variety because they can't just sell white pants.
Okay. So what happens to those containers of white pants when you reject them?
So they either still sit in the factory and deteriorate, or I'm not sure what the factory does with them, but it's more than likely to go to waste.
Right.
More than
Okay.
likely. Which is why this problem continue to exist, because especially with the fast fashion brands or brands producing such niche pieces that it's just not general enough and too risky for the factory to take a risk on. Unfortunately, there are even agreements of certain brands that if they sign a contract in the beginning saying that if by any chance something goes wrong and then we can't take the merchandise because maybe you're late or fit issues or whatever, it doesn't, basically it's not compliant by what they require, they have to burn the goods.
Burn.
Burn, yes. Certain
Okay.
brands are very particular about you have to burn, you can't resell. Now,
Okay.
there are certain cases where we know those brands, so we speak to the stores and say that, you know what, these are actually nice, but these are the rules. So if you can speak to them and then just use us as to facilitate to kind of bring it in for you, at least
Yeah.
everybody's on the same page, because it's also all connections, right?
Remember there was a big uproar a while ago because Burberry was burning the unused items. So that's like the one brand that comes to mind, but obviously it sounds like it's
This
quite
actually,
widespread.
you
And
know,
this is not changing. Like, are they still very happy to burn stuff?
the big brands, like where you mentioned Burberry, I'm not
Yeah.
mentioning brands, but it's the big brands in general.
Okay. So it's very widespread as a
Very widespread.
practice.
But amongst the big brands, amongst the really high-end brands, see, Burberry is a very high-end brand, I would say. There are even lower than Burberry, but considered high-end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
who are also doing it.
But
Activewear.
so it's kind of like a secret. Because like, how much do people know about this? Because I remember like Burberry was a very big scandal a while ago.
Oh, it is. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
You know what? It's not really, I don't know to call it a secret, because this is something that the factories, if, for instance, if I were to be communicating the factory, sometimes they will ask, like, you know what, this is what we have, A, B, C, D, like they'll give me a list. And then I'll see, hey, oh my God, you have this. I'm like, this is really nice. And he's like, no, we can't sell it to you because we have to burn it.
But is it like knowledge that leaves the supply chain, or is it more something that is well known within the supply
It's
chain?
known. It's known. For the big brands, it's actually pretty known. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about the level of Burberry brands, because I deal with the lower end brands that is produced
Mhm.
for Walmart, also for JCPenney, which is a nicer store, Target stores.
So we spoke about what is driving overconsumption, but then what is driving overproduction, which is the other side of the problem? Because you
Okay.
can't overconsume if there is an overproduction.
I feel that overproduction in the garment industry is structural. You have to overproduce to prepare for a buffer, like I said, for in case of damages. Keep in mind that in an apparel factory, the mid-size or even big size apparel factory, there are tens of thousands of workers who are working on an order for a store, because stores don't place one piece; they place 100,000 units, and then in that 100,000 units, there's a lot of detailings. Like sometimes it's a jacket, and then there's somebody else that's doing only the zipper stitching. There's somebody else who's only
Yeah.
doing the pocketing. With that amount of units, you can imagine the amount of hands is being produced, which is why it is very natural for them to overproduce, because for them it's like, you know what, we don't know the damage will come from which hand. Maybe it's during the zipper stitching or during the pocketing. We don't know. So for everything they have to prepare a buffer. So overproduction is structural in this industry. That's the side of the manufacturers. On another note though, there are also brands we have dealt with who do their forecasting in a way that, of course, it's not perfect, because in fashion, trends move really, really fast, right? And some brands, they over anticipate. They'll forecast that we think we can sell an X amount, and then they place the orders for an X amount. Turns out they only sell half of it. So sometimes it's a mistake in forecasting as well, because again, there is so many noise now with the social media, with the influencers
Yeah.
and whatnot, that trends move really, really fast. Every other brand is trying to one up the other. Previously, leggings never had pockets. Now it has every possible pocket you can think about. Left, right, back, center, feet. I don't know where. Like it has everything. So it moves really fast. So now they have to be careful. We see that certain brands are kind of pulling back from manufacturing so much of one style. They start to be a bit more conservative. But
Okay.
is it still happening that it makes a mistake in the forecasting? Yeah, of course. That's the one that creates dead stock and then markdowns and then waste is from there, because even stores that purchase from us and they're convinced they can sell everything, like this is a sellable item. Do they sell everything? No, but they sell a big chunk of it. The margins are already back, and some of them go on markdown. If it goes on markdown, that means it's been in the store long enough. Imagine you're a customer who goes to that same store and you see the same thing all the time. What are you going to think?
So what happens to the item?
Waste. That's
Oh,
another
that
thing.
also goes in the bin. Okay.
Yes.
And also these costs that you said the companies plan for, maybe their forecasts are wrong or they plan for overproduction. So this is all money that is being spent for something that eventually is not going to be sold. So who pays the price of this?
So you know what? I can't say it's not going to be sold. It's something that they don't know it's going to sell or not.
Mhm.
Yes, it's like a risk money, you can say. Like they're paying for the risk. Correct. But
Yeah.
who pays for this money is eventually I would say the brands. Because the ones who eventually places the order to the manufacturers is either a brand or a retailer that owns the brand. They are the ones who places the orders. And all of these happens, they do forecasting, right? And then they learn the market, they learn what the consumers are buying, not buying, they learn the trends. They have enough people in the team who are also like sort of specifically looking at the trends. What are people buying, not buying, what are they talking about now? But it's just the nature of fashion that things move so fast. It just moves really, really fast. And I feel that the one of the best things that brands are doing for themselves, not all of it, but at least some of it that I see, is they don't place such big orders at one shot yet. So that
Mhm.
they forecast if they think that they can sell a lot, as in they just place some first. And then they'll see the selling. Is it good? Are people liking the style but complaining about the price? You have to strategize in a way that sure you need to make your cost back. It's your business, right? So you gotta make your cost back, your margin back, and then put it on a markdown. Does it sell on a markdown? If it still sells, then you know, okay, people are coming after the price, and majority maybe found that expensive initially, but they get it on a markdown, they're happy with it, it sells out. Either it sells out or it still doesn't sell out. When it doesn't, then you'll know that okay, it's a style issue or maybe it's a color issue. Like the stores also will get feedback. It's still a long way to go, I feel, in fashion, but even post COVID, these changes are already starting to be made because I hear from the manufacturers that, you know, we're not getting as much orders, things like that. So but they get it in limited quantities. They don't get
Okay.
it so big, like at one go.
Yeah.
They don't
So
more.
there's been some level of shift in mindset of how to do
Yes. Yeah.
to approach manufacturing. It sounds like there is still quite a lot of risk for the factories themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Which is why they create buffers for themselves. And there are certain factories, again, because they are all over the world, it's different cultures you work with. The brands also work with different cultures naturally because you place from all over the world. What I've observed, at least, because I have to travel all over the world to buy as well, right? So, of course, I get exposed to the different cultures, how they work, how their speed is. Like China is always well known to be super fast. They're very good with details.
Can you think of ways that the industry could reduce its impacts across the supply chain?
If we're going to talk about can a brand be truly sustainable and how can they reduce their impact, basically, I feel that can it come to a point that there's zero impact? It's like impossible, I would
Yeah,
say.
absolutely.
Yeah. But it can become significantly more responsible, yes. But better systems, the way that at least I'm hearing from manufacturers, I'm not even getting as much orders anymore. Now the way they order is like half of the quantities they would do before. I think that's already a very good start to it. And that on its own, because like the apparel industry is worldwide, right? So you can imagine if one brand is doing that already, it's not just one. Like I'm pretty sure others are doing it as well. Maybe not everybody, but post COVID, the quantities have really been chopped significantly. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They go more for variety than for quantities. And what they start to do, which is wonderful, I think, is they try to stick to one type of fabric, but they use it for many styles. Like
Right.
I've been to Ethiopia personally, and I created a whole line from somebody else's leftover fabric of activewear because I'm like, this is so nice. What's it doing? He's like, it's leftovers from a client of theirs in Europe. I could think of so many things I can do with this, and I just gave him ideas. It turned out to be a big hit. Like it was really good. Like and it did really well in Canada, US, and it picked up. It got picked up by Africa Sourcing Fashion Week as well. Did even further to other clients in Spain. Like it was really like it was really good. I saw that they had polos, men's polos, like golf polos, with the same fabric as the t-shirt, with the same fabric as the other long sleeve t-shirt. I'm like, it's so nice to see this. Like they're using the fabric in all range
Mm-hmm.
of styles to use up as much as they can, as opposed to making 10 different things. So I see attempts being there. I mean, is it 100% there? Obviously not really, but then it's getting better.
Would you say that the circular economy is the solution?
I think it's a part of the solution. But it's not just the only one, of course, because I feel that circularity in off price, like what I do with the whole redistributing, it definitely helps address the existing merchandise that people assume to be waste. We, as the end consumers, we don't see it that way. I feel that circularity helps, but it is really not the only solution, because it helps in the sense for us that it gives the products a second chance, but we cannot resell our way out of overproduction forever. I think that the real solution would be a combination of smarter production, redistribution, like the whole circular system, educating customers, which the end consumers right now are also getting a lot more familiarized with the concept of sustainability. Circular, yeah.
Mhm.
And they understand that when we say sustainability, it's not just a brand who's using fabrics which are sustainable and then slapping a tag on it. There's also sustainability in practice, where
Yeah.
you buy something that has a life to it, not just you can wear it 3 times and then you throw it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody should change mindset. And I suppose the idea is that if people don't buy as much, then companies won't produce as much, although we mustn't put all the fault on individuals for the sustainability challenge.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
so much for this really interesting chat. Is there anything else you would like to add?
A lot of people still need to kind of make themselves aware that sustainability and affordability can coexist, because there are enough brands who take pride that they are using sustainable materials, sure, but they tend to be expensive. My work in the off-price fashion world has shown that no, sustainability and affordability can coexist, because we can create access for consumers to get to have affordable fashion. On the other hand, we can also help recover value for brands, and you can preserve jobs for factories, because as long as orders are there, jobs are going to continue being there. And this whole redistribution type of model, it reduces waste. Sustainability doesn't always have to be expensive or exclusive. And I feel that sometimes sustainability looks as simple as just making sure that every perfectly good product gets worn instead of wasted.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And this also goes for a second-hand fashion, which is not quite your
Yeah.
industry, but I think there is a place for both, really. As ever, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please share it far and wide. We have a newsletter, we are on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. So follow us there to never miss an episode. See you next time.